All right, good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you've corroborated your iotas because we're back with True Crime Loser. Hope you're doing well. So, for today's story, we're going to start in Hong Kong in February of 2018, where a young couple, his name is Chan, her name is Poon, they had fallen in love the month before working part time at the same company. And in February, like I said, of 18, Poon tells Chan that she is 5 weeks pregnant. And Chan, upon hearing this news, soon after books a trip for the both of them to Taiwan. And so Poon's mother got a text that month saying, "Hey, I'm going to Taiwan with a friend." Didn't say, with my boyfriend or, I'm pregnant. I told the father, we're going to go celebrate in Hong Kong, or we're going to go celebrate in Taiwan. All it was I'm going to Taiwan with a friend. I'll be back on the 17th. So Chan and Poon go to Taiwan. They check into a hotel. And while they're there, they're walking around a night market. So just picture a night market in Taiwan. I picture just lights and neon and music and a bunch of Asian people screaming and things displayed and things that you would be like, who would ever buy this? And Chan and Poon, the young pregnant couple, are walking around this night market and they see a giant, absurdly huge pink suitcase. And I don't know which one of them wanted it, but they end up buying this enormous suitcase that's pink. I had just got back from doing traveling a couple weeks ago, and you see people with these enormous suitcases. It's almost as tall. They're like rolling it. The handle is above them. And you're like, what are you bringing on these trips? But I guess they sell them in touristy spots for if you buy a bunch of junk while you're traveling, then you can bring home. But anyway, so they buy this huge suitcase and then they go back to their hotel room and they get into a fight about how to pack up their new enormous pink suitcase. Which at first seems like a stupid thing to fight about. It's like, really, you're going to fight about packing up? But I kind of get it. My girlfriend and I, we don't fight about how to pack up, but what we always get into, not a fight, but she'll be like, do you think I should bring this on the trip? And then I'll give her my opinion. And then when we get there, if I'm wrong, then she's like, I should have brought it. Like the most recent one is we were going to Arizona to hang out with my family and my uncle. Everybody has a pool in Arizona because it's as hot as anywhere, and so you gotta have a pool. And so she was like, should I bring sunscreen, do you think? And I was like, why would you tote sunscreen across the country? They have a pool in Arizona. They're gonna have 40 bottles. We're probably gonna sit in the pool a total of 5 hours while we're there. Don't bring. And she brought it, and we ended up not needing it. And then we flew home, and it broke open in her bag because of the pressure on the plane and went everywhere. And so we get home, and she's sitting there cleaning the sunscreen out of the inside of her bag, and I'm kind of just walking around enjoying being right. Like, hey, babe, can I grab you a paper towel? How's it going? So then I was right about that one, and then I can't remember where we were going, but she was like, should I bring shampoo and conditioner? I was like, no, there's going to be shampoo and conditioner. Don't. And then there wasn't. So I had to hear it the whole trip of like, I told you we should have brought. So when I read this, that they got into a fight about how to pack up their enormous new pink suitcase, I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of get it. if you have a way in your head of like, no, we should do it like this, it would be frustrating. So anyway, and this is according to Chan. So this is what Chan is telling the police almost a month later. So this is his story. Take it with a grain of salt. And so, according to Chan, they got into an argument about how to pack up this pink suitcase. And then, and as I'm going through this, it has weird similarities to the Chris Watts story that he told the night of. And so he said they got into this fight, and then they made up, and then they had sex, and then a few hours later they started to get into a really bad fight again at like 2 a.m, at which point, in just the depths of a all-out fight, Poon tells Chan that the baby's father is not Chan, but her ex-boyfriend. And then also at some point, he said that Poon pulled up a video on her phone of her having sex with another guy and like showed it to him. Look at this. Look at it. And again, so who knows if that's true? I guess it could be true, but this is according to Chan a month later. And he said that the fight and hearing that the kid wasn't his and seeing her on video with another guy, something broke and he grabbed her by the neck, hit her head against the wall, and then with his bare hands, over 10 minutes struggling on the floor, strangled her. And so now it's after 2 a.m. in their hotel room, and Poon is dead. And so Chan folds up Poon into the enormous pink suitcase. So then you start thinking, was this planned? Did she tell Chan, hey, I'm pregnant, and he immediately books this trip to Taiwan? While he's there, they buy a giant suitcase. Going through this one, it's either like he just stumbled through this just without a plan at all, and it, in a way, worked out, or it was one of the most genius ways to get... Anyway, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but so he stuffs her into this giant pink suitcase. So there's footage of him and him and Poon coming into the hotel room, dragging the suitcase, and then the next day, it's just Chan coming out, and the suitcase seems real heavy. So did he plan this and say, hey, let's go to this night market? He bought the suitcase? I don't know. And then so that next day, he travels around 15 different dumpster sites, kind of FOTUS style, throws away all of her belongings, takes the suitcase. So you can see footage of him like going through train stations with this heavy, huge pink, something just scary that it's a giant pink suitcase with his girlfriend in it. And so he takes the train or maybe the bus or something, 15 stops out of town, dumps the body in a thicket, throws away the suitcase, takes out some money with her credit cards. He keeps her phone and her cards, takes out a little bit of money, tells the cops he was going to go shopping, decides not to go shopping, and catches the 2 p.m. flight back to Hong Kong. The Poon's parents, slowly get freaked out because they don't hear from her. She's not back. They file a missing persons report on March 5th. Poon's dad goes to Taiwan to start looking for her. A week or two after that, so like the middle of March, they finally arrest Chan. So there's a 20-year-old kid. They sit Chan down, and he calmly tells them the story. Did he book the trip? Did they bought the huge suitcase? Did they got into a fight about how to pack the suitcase? Did she said that he wasn't the father, showed him the video, that he killed her, dumped her, and then came back to Hong Kong? Well, I guess it's worth mentioning at this point that Hong Kong in the 1800s got into it with Britain over trade, and Britain ended up colonizing Hong Kong. And so China, the Chinese government, is just a total authoritarian nightmare. If you haven't watched my Chinese social credit system, they're about to start this nightmare credit system for their people. If you haven't watched that video, watch it. But so even though that Hong Kong is China, they were settled by Britain, and so it's a democracy, and they have freedom of speech and freedom of press and freedom of association and freedom of religion, and there's just a overall lifestyle of like we're free. And what it was is Britain and China made a deal where for 99 years it would be under British control, and then after 99 years it would revert back to the Chinese government. Well, that's kind of horrifying because it's almost like a big giant hourglass with red authoritarian sand ticking away until all your freedoms go away. And it's just, you get visited by Joe Nee going, "What good deeds did you do this week? Oh, you were a little bit rude. Your social credit score is now going down." And so that 99 years ended in 1997. Well, the Hong Kong was like, whoa, we can't just all of a sudden go from free to authoritarian Chinese nightmare. And so there was talks, and they planned to do it for another 50 years. So like a 50-year period where it can ease into it, just so it's not this hard. And there's a classic awesome footage of Margaret Thatcher talking to the Asian representative and saying, she goes, "Freedom of speech and freedom of press and association and religion, these are fundamental freedoms. They must continue." And it's like, preach. And so they had, another 50 years. So now, right now, it's set to revert back to the authoritarian psychos in 2047. But they're slowly creeping in. They don't, they've slowly started to do things already that are kind of taking over before then. Like there was a bookstore that was kind of an edgy bookstore in Hong Kong where they were selling books that talked about all the sexual scandals, all the high-ups in the Chinese government, just like all the governments, they're just as horrible. And all the scandals, and all the people that worked at that bookstore disappeared. And one of them popped up like a year later crying on TV, being like, "I am so sorry, I should have never have." Just horrifying stuff. And so Chan, 2018, is sitting in Hong Kong telling police that he just murdered his girlfriend, stuffed her in a giant pink suitcase, and they don't have an extradition treaty. So the only thing they can charge Chan with is money laundering. For when he got back, he took money out of her accounts and used it and paid for his credit card. And they can't extradite him back to Taiwan for the murder. And so he goes to trial. He pleads guilty as quickly as possible. As soon as they're like, "All right, well, we're charging you with money laundering. That's all we can really do." He immediately guilty. I'll plead guilty very quickly. I'd like to start my sentence for that, for my crimes. And before they could, mess with the laws or anything. And so he only gets 29 months in jail. And he already had done 13 of them during the. And so it's hard to not think like, did he know about the loophole? Was he the first person to be like, hey, if I go over to Taiwan and make it back, and then I'll just admit to it, money laundering? Did this 20-year-old kid have one of the best plans to get away with murder? That, it's a weird one to think about. Or was he just like a Chris Watts thing, just totally panicked, and then it ended up that he just sort of lucked into it? But anyway, he's going to be out. I think he might even be out in October, as soon as October. But as you can imagine, the story of not being able to extradite him back and him not doing very much jail time for murder caused the politicians to be like, well, we got to do something about this. So they quickly, in the hysteria of like, this guy killed his girlfriend, we can't have this, they drafted up this extradition bill where you could, if someone breaks the law in Taiwan or mainland China and then comes to Hong Kong, you could extradite them back. Well, as much as people thought this was horrible, that what Chan did to Poon, and thinks it's awful that Chan is going to not do that much jail time, the people in Hong Kong were like, whoa, no, this bill is crazy. This bill allows for really anything. You say something about that, you say, they don't have freedom of speech in mainland China. You say something in Taiwan that the government there sucks, or you do something in Hong Kong, they'll ship you right back to Beijing, and you just disappear like the bookstore people. Just end up on TV. I'm so sorry. What did I have done? I love the government. I love it. Just end up crying and apologizing. And so people are like, no, this is not acceptable. We'll get shipped off to Beijing quicker than you can say. And especially political, people, journalists that are in trouble for reporting on the wrong thing, or political type crimes, they were like, no, we're gonna, China's wanted me over there for this thing I said for years. Now, if you sign this, it'll be good to get Chan over there, but I'm going to be shipped over there too. And so there's a lot of public outcry being like, nope, this bill is. And then the other side of it is like, well, look at this Chan guy killed Poon, this poor 19-year-old pregnant woman, and he's just going to kind of get away with it. So it was this like, I can see that side, but we don't want to sign our freedoms away just because Chan did something horrible. And so this bill really put a divider in Hong Kong, and these protests starts, and they get more people and more people, and that's what these protests that we're seeing right now, where it's every night, every weekend, giant fires, they're blocking roads to the airport, and you can't blame them. I am rooting for the people of Hong Kong. Imagine knowing that hourglass. Imagine having a kid and knowing that in 2047, it's going back, and they're already trying to they speak Cantonese in Hong Kong, and they're switching it to Mandarin. The school books are switching to very pro-China. So they're just inching them out slowly. They're squeezing Hong Kong. So there's this feeling of, we need to fight for our country. And I think that the governments are at a huge disadvantage against these protesters. These protests aren't going to stop, because this is actually something that the protesters aren't going to give in on this one. This is totally your freedoms, you know. There's a lot of protests in America that it's kind of just theater. Like they're out there like, hey, hey, ho, ho, we want this to go. And it's more just theater and like we're activists and this is what, but this is truly like freedoms are on the line. People from all sides are coming together. And actually, yesterday or 2 days ago, after months of these protests blocking roads to the airport, finally the economy's starting to take a hit. And the leader of Hong Kong withdrew the bill, the extradition bill, totally, which was at the top of their list of demands, which is a huge step. But the protests are going to keep going because I think there's this terror feeling that people in Hong Kong have of like, we need to do something. Time is ticking away. The sand is pouring fast. And a scary thing that there's jokes that the leader of Hong Kong, this woman, is just a puppet for Beijing. She's put in by Beijing, controlled by Beijing, and she just pretends to be the, hey, freedom, freedom, Hong Kong. And she like did one of those where the leaked audio, she didn't turn her microphone off, and she was talking, and she said that she would resign if she could, which just confirmed to everybody that she's just this puppet. So poor Hong Kong. I support the people of Hong Kong. Keep fighting, people. I'd come down and help, but they would definitely throw me in jail for my Chinese social credit video. But check that one out if you haven't seen it. Crazy story. And Chan, I guess, is getting out soon. But I'm going to cut it off there. I'll see you next time. Why? Starving why? Fuck you, Chinese government.